I'm really excited to have you on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. It's Ryan Walsh, CEO and founder of Valqari. Valqari.
Yeah.
Sounds like some kind of Batman type thing.
Yeah.
Sounds cool, man. Valqari.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm excited to have you on the show because I'm just genuinely, I think a lot of founders are going to be excited on what you're doing and what your company's doing to learn from the story and journey that you've been on, of course. But I also just think I don't know, selfishly, I'm just kind of into the whole drone thing and the technology. So that's going to be cool.
It's a fun space.
Yeah, man. I was listening to an interview with Joe Rogan, and they asked him, what makes the Joe Rogan podcast so big? Like, there's a lot of people that have podcasts, but why did yours blow up so big? And his answer was really telling. He was like, I didn't think about blowing up. He was like, I just wanted to have good guests on the show, get curious about what they're up to and what they're building, and understand how they think about things, and just like provide value to the audience. But he's like, I was just interested in the guest, and I would just have good real conversations. And I'm like, I think there's a lot to be learned from that. And so, yeah.
Authenticity goes a long way.
That's right, man. That's why I like this format. It's not like a interview. It's like just a conversation, even though we have things we're going to talk about. So let me do this for those that are listening right now, because this might be one of the most ones I've been excited about, just because of the uniqueness of what you guys do and like the future of this. But I'm going to read off, I don't normally do this, but I'm going to read off a quick kind of blurb of what you guys are up to, just to give context to the audience, because they're probably thinking drones, what does this guy do? What is this company? All that stuff. And then we'll kind of get into some other topics around that,
Perfect.
around the drones. So just for context, Valqari. Okay, I want to say Valqari for some reason. Valqari designs and manufactures universal drone delivery infrastructure. So think of this like a mailbox or a landing/docking station for drone deliveries. Their core innovation is solving the last inch problem, how to securely receive, transfer, and store packages delivered by drones. Their tech includes small drone mailboxes, landing pads with charging capabilities, lockers and storage systems, API and software integration for autonomous delivery. The system is universal and patented, meaning it can work with almost any drone manufacturer. Is that accurate?
Perfect.
Okay, good. So what does the world look like with drones flying around the skies in 10 years? Like, what do you see as the vision of where the world is going as it relates to this?
I kind of grew up with, the Jetsons and all of that still in my childhood. And there was this vision of the future where, I think we all kind of see that image of when we picture the future, right, in our heads. And I always vision drones as part of that, right? And it always seemed like a natural evolution and kind of where everything was going, that we would kind of take the skies over to some extent and use these robots to solve our problems and make life a little bit easier for us.
Mm-hmm. So what do you see 10 years? Is it like the skies filled with drones, or what do you think? Is it less than that?
Yeah, drones are going to be doing all kinds of different tasks. So a lot of our roads, different bridges, cell towers, all of that inspection's already being done by drones, right? And it's cell towers, they used to have to budget in a handful of deaths every year because inevitably somebody, you can only control so much. Somebody would slip and fall, and they had to budget that in. And years they didn't have a death were big years, right? And so now you just send a drone up, it does a 3D scan, you get a full digital twin of your cell tower or your windmill or whatever it may be, and everybody's coming home. And so that's a whole profession that was changed overnight, and we're going to see that happening in a lot of different professions. But from just an end user side, you're sick, your kid's sick, you don't want to run to the Walgreens, CVS, and pick up your prescription, right? You got to get all the kids in the car. It's a hassle.
Yeah.
Hit your phone 15 minutes later, right there in your mailbox, ready to go, right? And so we see that kind of day-to-day use of drones for most people in the next 10 years.
Man, that'd be convenient.
Right?
We think Amazon is convenient now. Wait till the drones start delivering stuff.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think about that. I'm like, man, that sounds so cool. The other side of me is like, isn't the sky just like going crazy with drones everywhere and stuff? Like, what does that look like?
I've come to realize people aren't looking up as much as they think. Their heads are pretty down and their phones off. But yes, we are going to see, more drones in the sky. And ideally, it's in a controlled way, and people are able to, I imagine in 1915, wherever you were in the world, right? You see the first car and you're going, oh my God, are these going to just be everywhere filling our,
too, right? Yeah.
But I mean, think about it, how we've completely shifted architecture, the way our cities are laid out, everything around the automobile, right? That means of transportation. And before that, it was trains and horses, right? Our cities are so dependent on logistics and transportation that it's going to be a sight at first to start seeing hundreds of drones in the sky, but eventually it's going to be as mundane as seeing hundreds of cars on the road.
Right. So in 10 years or whatever the time frame is, do you think that every Amazon package is now delivered with the drone? Anything you want at Walgreens, like you said, delivered to your home in a drone?
Yeah, drones are really great for a vast majority. I believe there was a study done by Walmart and something to the tune of 87 to 90% of their SKUs could be delivered by drone, and 95% of Amazon's could. And so, we're not ordering high volumes, like people think, right? If you order that flat screen or groceries for 4 or a microwave, you're going to get it delivered by truck. But a vast majority of the things we're getting, meals, cable chargers, the hair clip you need for, that specific color for your daughter's play, right? All of that is really what people are buying day to day. And so that is where drones are going to excel.
Do you think they'll get bigger to where they can do the flat screen TV at some point? It seems like a natural evolution where they would just keep being bigger, smarter.
They've been doing that. That's been happening for a number of years. The big limit was the FAA, and currently the regulations are the payload and the drone have to be under 55 pounds. So when you think about kind of the drone, anywhere from half to 2/3 of its weight is the drone, it gives you, payload of right around 18 to 25 pounds if you're really topping out. And maximizing. And so, that's just regulatory, though. It's very easy to keep scaling these things up. And I've seen some really impressive drones that can carry a ton.
Damn.
Yeah, huge.
That's freaking wild, man. Are you guys mostly focused on medical, or is it all industries? Because I saw the Northwestern thing where you guys were delivering medical supplies and samples and things like that. It seems like it was really making a positive impact for the hospital.
It was, and it was a huge success. And we're very grateful to have Northwestern as partners. And yes, we're very focused on medical, but we see applications across all industries. And so it's tough, right? As a founder, you constantly are being told you have to niche down and solve one specific customer's problem, right? And in our technology, that was actually a challenge I wrestled with for a while, because every single industry I looked at had an application, right? If you're an auto mechanic, right? Somebody comes in and brings in their 92 Toyota Camry, you don't have bolts for that thing there, right? You have to get it. And so you have couriers with, Napa and all these places running around every day for these parts, right? And so, things like that, legal, right? Having to get documents back and forth to the courthouse and all these different things. And no matter where I looked, I found another application where on-demand logistics was increasingly important. And so we're focused on medical, but, we really see this being in everything.
Did it take a lot of discipline to be able to niche down so focused like that? Because to your point, if everyone can use your product or service, it's hard sometimes to then focus on a niche and really build that out, because you're thinking, well, we can do this for anyone, any customer, let's do it.
It is, in a way, and I think it's very company and product specific. And in our case, right, building towards medical was the highest requirement, right? And meeting HIPAA standards and all of those different components. And so the thought process was, if we can meet it at a medical standard, it's very easy to go backwards and deliver auto parts, right? Or donuts, for instance, right? But it is a challenge to have to do that. And because regulations for the longest time were where they were, we looked at healthcare because it had highest criticality, highest need, and oftentimes that's what the regulators were leaning into. And so you kind of had to work with what we were given.
Right. It's almost like they see it as life kind of critical, right? Critical to life, survival, things like that. And so they're like, all right, we'll be a little bit more lenient. Where if it's your Amazon,
you get
your
next
microphone coming or something, they're like, do we really need this in the sky?
Exactly.
Yeah, I got that. And then to your point, once you get that industry down, you've kind of worked through those regulations. Now it opens up to the other industries, which I'm sure eventually you guys will, get into.
Widening the goalposts is very easy once you've got it established.
What do most people misunderstand about drones?
I mean, there's quite a bit. I get everything from, is this thing spying on me? That's a big one. And oftentimes, no, right? I mean, yes, there are drones used for police surveillance and things like that, but your commercial drones are not spying on you, right? Particularly because what we talked about, that 55 pounds, I need to optimize every ounce on that drone. And adding cameras that are just spying on people doesn't help anything, right?
What's Shelly doing next door?
Right. Like I need that so I can get more package weight up in there. And so, things like that. Our drone's going to replace trucks, right? We're going to have no trucks on the road, and that's crazy.
Yeah, that'd be kind of hard to do.
We
autonomous trucks in the future, right? But
yeah, absolutely. But we have such a strained last mile logistics network, not just in the U.S. but in most of the world, and so if anything, drones are a great addition, and we saw a lot during COVID that we don't have a lot of extra capacity here. Like that system starts getting extra demand and gets strained, you don't have much to push on. And so where does that extra come from? If we can take control of our skies and both alleviate some of the pressure on the road and get a little bit more capacity for things like that, and in the meantime reducing traffic, right, and minimize costs and optimize kind of the care at the same time, it seems like a no-brainer.
Right. Yeah, and your guys, everything's autonomous with you guys, right? So it's just you're kind of requesting an order and then it just goes. You don't have to control it and stuff.
We have a pilot that can step in at any time for an emergency, or we've had to have one with Northwestern for FAA regulations, but the drone is actually flying itself. It knows its waypoints and it follows them, and has detect and avoid where it needs to. And
that's wild. It seems like the trucking industry, like all semi-truck drivers in the next 10 years are going to be autonomous.
So. Yes, very much.
Is that what you think?
Mm-hmm. I think trucking.
So the technology is there. It's just a question of is it approved at scale to be able to use it, infrastructure around it, But it's there. It's already there.
But that's it. The nail on the head, right, is the infrastructure, and that's really where we focused with the landing stations, and kind of the epiphany I had 11, 12 years ago was there's going to be drones everywhere. It's not a question of if, right? It's just when. But where do they go? How do they land?
Right.
What do you do, right? And so
that's the hardest part. It's the idea is easy, but it's the infrastructure and the behind the scenes and how it all gets built out, and is it practical? Does it work?
And that's really where we dove in, right? Yeah. Is let's kind of be that piece behind the scene, the support element, and we've since moved into full operations and end to end. But at the time, it was very much we need to find that critical area that the drones are going to need that people were overlooking. Nobody had thought about it at the time.
Yeah, it's wild, man. I heard Elon Musk talking about drones, and one of his kind of two critiques was weather, how they're going to operate in weather. And then he said noise. He said they can be kind of noisy. What's your feedback or thought on that?
I think those are the arguments of a guy who invested in the Boring Company. Right?
That's right. He's not sky, underground, right?
I think digging giant holes is much more difficult than putting a drone in the sky. That is what it is. But noise, absolutely not, right? It's actually a big misconception, because it was the toy drones that really hit the market first, and physics, right? So if you have smaller propellers that are spinning much faster, they're cracking the sound barrier, right? That's why you get that whirring, right?
It's like the damn leaf blowers, man.
It's
Those
the worst.
Things are wildly
our big drones, 6-7 feet across, right? Yeah. It sounds no louder than this conversation if you're 10 feet away.
Is that right?
Yeah,
wow. That's incredible.
They have big propellers that push a lot of air, and it's a lot of lift, but they're not going fast enough to crack the sound barrier, and that's really where a lot of that extra noise comes from. And so that's something, when we started doing work on golf courses back in 2021, that was the first thing people worried about. And so I don't know if we just like those really hard challenges or what, but we said, all right, that's a constraint we're going to work within, and realized a lot of the pieces and elements that are required to go into that.
Mm-hmm. And how fast do they go?
I mean, I've seen some of these racing drones can go real fast, couple 100 miles an hour. I think 200 miles an hour. I saw one of them go.
What about standard hospital, the ones that you got?
30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour.
That's all it needs to go probably for that,
You don't want it going too fast. If anything, when you're shaking the samples and things, that's bad, right? So we
Right.
want very slow and steady. But to your point about weather, you know, that's getting solved more and more by the day, and I'm actually insanely impressed by some of the videos I've seen, particularly like by a lot of the European companies. It's just a matter of weatherproofing like any other piece of electronics. It's time consuming, it's costly, it adds weight, but you can do it, right? When we're dealing with every gram and ounce, and ounces make pounds and pounds make pain, right? We oftentimes minimally weatherproof, but I've seen drones that can fly through pretty insane rains, and we can fly in 35 mile an hour gusts, no problem. So we've really pushed how we can handle weather. So I think that's one of those other kind of arguments that's already been overcome in a lot of ways.
What industries do you feel like are sleeping on drone technology right now, and what industries do you feel like are really ahead of it and going to capitalize?
Almost all industries are sleeping right now.
Really?
Yeah, medical. There's been a lot of things in medical, and you know, it's funny because I've been in this for so long, but 2017, you know, companies delivering burritos and a burger, and it was huge everywhere. By 2019, you know, is this another burrito delivery? I don't care, right? Like nobody wanted to hear about the gimmicks and the things like that anymore. And so there was a big push right around COVID where there was almost a call to quality. And so we saw a lot more of the medical type stuff pop up and things like that. But you know.
What the heck happened in New Jersey with all the drones that were flying around? We never got answers for that, I feel like. Do you have any insights into that, or what you think it is?
I don't know that I do, to be honest. Some of the videos I've seen are most of the videos I've seen are just planes and drones, right? Like a lot of it is people investigating to see what it is. But some of the ones I've seen, that's not anything commercially available. So, you know, take that how you will, but I don't know beyond that. It's just nothing that I've ever been exposed to in the market or even, you know, under an NDA with anybody.
It's like the government was like, we don't know what these are. It's like, you're telling me the United States government doesn't know what these think. They're just flying in our airspace. We're like, I don't know. Can't even understand it either. Can't even check it out.
I find that question very compelling, but, you know, it's having worked in the government, I know sometimes there's threads you don't pull.
That's right.
You know, this, I don't know yet. They have a lot of back and forth.
Oh shit, there's a whole thing there that I didn't expect, right? Yeah.
And I mean, you know, they've already announced, right, UAPs and things in Congress and acknowledged it now, right? And so, you know, for me as an aerospace professional, it's fascinating from you know, there are potentially new forms of propulsion and ways drones can operate and things to that nature. So I find it absolutely fascinating from that front. I think some of the more ontological questions that may come from that are fascinating, but I don't have any more answers than anybody else does.
What's your take on UAPs? Like when you see you know, whether it's the Air Force pilot or Navy pilots that see these things, and there's a bunch of military people that have came forward. There's civilians. Obviously, there's some stories that are probably not so true. There's some that maybe there is some truth to it. What is your thoughts on that, if you had to guess? I
mean, like I said, you know, the government's acknowledged that there is anomalies that very, very credible pilots have, you know, and other personnel have witnessed and our sensors and systems have witnessed. And so there's obviously something there. I think that's where a lot of these questions are going. And like I said, I'm fascinated from you know, curiosity and like this is
so interesting,
new physics, new, you know, everything. And I think we all know deep down, you know, we're one speck of sand around a nuclear explosion, and there's trillions and billions of all of them, you know, repeated over and over across as far as we can imagine and see, right? So, you know, I'm sure we're at the bottom of the spectrum as far as what we've figured out so far, but for sure. I want to know. I'm curious,
Me too, man.
right?
Me too. If you had to guess, though, do you think it's out of, you know, it's out of Earth, it's not from Earth, or do you think it's something that potentially someone here on Earth, like governments and that type of stuff, are coming up with?
I think it goes beyond that, right? I mean, it very much could be, you know, our programs, but if for whatever reason it is not a government program, that opens a number of questions, right? I mean, are they from Earth? then we just don't understand, right? I mean, a lot of talk about the oceans and
I know
how
weird
long
stuff
have they
they're
been
going
in the
inside
ocean
there and stuff.
right?
Yeah.
Did they start there? Did they come from somewhere else, right? Are they from a different point in time, right?
I thought about that too. Maybe
You
they're
know?
us in the future or something, right?
Dimensionally, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many possibilities to it, and each one is so overwhelmingly fascinating because it brings so much with it. And I think
Yeah.
the most fascinating thing is kind of some of the full circle you're seeing between religions across the world and, you know, what's being kind of acknowledged now. And, you know,
What do you mean by that?
you know, you read some of the you know, old ancient Indian texts, Chinese texts, you know, the Bhagavad Gita, you know, the Ayurvedas and things like that. You know, they talk about vimanas and flying ships, right? The Bible talks about, I mean, so there's definitely something to this not being a modern phenomenon, right? And so I think that somehow gives a little bit more credibility to, you know, this isn't just a mass delusion of today or something
Right.
like that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very open-minded and fascinated by
Me
it.
too, man. Me too. I go back and forth between like, man, I think this might be some type of alien or some type of us in the future or something kind of like one of those crazy theories that maybe is not so crazy. But then I also think about maybe it is just the government. They got some new stuff and they don't want to get this technology out to everyone. And like, if we needed it, like in the right moment, they would bust it out and people would be like, holy
That's how you want it.
Yeah, like we didn't see this coming. We were expecting a plane and you flew in some anti-gravity thing that just wiped out everyone.
Yep.
Right? Like
That's kind of how you want your government
exactly.
to
That's
be.
what you want. Yeah, you think that they're bringing a pistol and you got a freaking, you know, M4 or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Something
It's
pops
crazy.
off around the world and would be very glad that those programs exist, right?
Right.
At the same time, you know, I think to Arthur C. Clarke, and, you know, it's kind of just as scary if you're alone as if you're not, right? If we
Yeah.
look into the vastness of space and there's nothing,
There's gotta be
it's just dead, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's scary as hell.
That is scary.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
why isn't there anything?
Yeah.
Why are we
kinda
just
weird.
waiting for it? Like,
Right.
You know, so I think there's it's chilling no matter how you slice it.
It is, man. I think a lot about that. Like, what else is out there in this universe? Because to your point, man, earlier, we're like a speck. If you just take a speck of sand and just drop it in like an ocean, that's what Earth is.
Yep.
It's just like, and so you think there's got to be something else out there, or is there the creator aspect, the Big Bang? Like, but even that, what started that? You know what I mean? And like, why? And just,
Right.
man, there's so many questions that I don't know. We definitely won't get the answer to all of them probably in our lifetime, but maybe we'll get some answers that.
There was a recent announcement that a lot of scientists they see a lot of evidence that we are in a black hole. I think is
Really?
the new kind of theory percolating in the spheres, right? And you know, I can't remember if it was the angular momentum measured or certain aspects of what they're measuring at, you know, the kind of the cosmic microwave background radiation. It indicates that, you know, maybe there isn't some of these, you know, the constants, you know, cosmological constants and dark energy and some of these kind of things they've band-aided into the formula. And in reality, it's, you know, a little bit more explainable that we're in a black hole. I think that in itself could be fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Because then, yeah, great. Now we know we're in a black hole. What's outside that black hole? What, you know,
Right.
there's so many layers to it.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. Go down a rabbit hole with that for sure. Just like
Sure
think
could.
about it for the next 7 years, you know?
Yep.
What are your thoughts on Archer Aviation? Have you paid attention to what they're doing?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think they're really doing phenomenal. I think the entire eVTOL market has had a number of challenges, and if anything, almost a victim of their own success in some ways. And what I mean by that is, you know, we've gone through life cycles already of hype in the drone industry,
Yeah.
and you know, the winters get very cold, right?
Yeah.
But eVTOLs in particular and air taxis had a lot of interest very early on, right? And so a lot of money got poured into it, a lot. And it was the same thing that happened initially in drones, and we saw a lot of companies just kind of burn out or kind of zombie into that, you know, 5-year life cycle. And it was challenging as somebody who cares about this industry to kind of see this happen. And I'm thankfully glad that the eVTOL market hasn't had more than it has. I know we've had a few, right, Joby and whatnot, that kind of done their thing, but people don't appreciate when you're dealing with hardware and deep tech sometimes how long this takes, both from an engineering and physics point of view, right? We got a lot of issues with energy density and batteries and the charging infrastructure and all these different pieces of it when you look at that at scale. And then you gotta solve all these problems. And so people don't necessarily it might not be ready until 2027 or 2030 or 2032, but you're just not gonna do it. That's within arm's reach. That's a
it's right
snap,
there,
right? So I think people's patience is some of the biggest obstacles sometimes.
Yeah, it always takes a little bit longer than you think it is. With any business, I feel like it's more complicated. It's harder than it looks from the outside. Outside looking in, you're like, why don't we just do this? And they're like, yeah, go try to do that.
And you're an overnight success, 20 years in the making.
Yeah, exactly.
Always.
Yeah, exactly. So you're in the Army. You're an Army Ranger, is that right?
Yep.
Did your experience in the Army have anything to do with you wanting to start this business, or how did it shape you a little bit?
The Army shaped me in a lot of ways, but there were a few instances in particular. I remember one, I expected to be in the military for a career. I thought for sure 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely the plan when I signed up.
Did you go right out of high school?
Yeah, I was 17.
Wow, man. Just a kid, just a baby, man.
Well, I tried to sign up. 9/11 happened, and I rolled into the recruiting office, and I'm like, I'm 18. I'm ready to go. And they're like, you're not a day past 15, obviously, right? So I was like, no, I'm 18. Right? They weren't having any of my shit that day.
Wow.
But they were cool, and they took me under their wing and, checked in on me every couple weeks. And, so when we invaded Iraq, I was just about to graduate high school and signed up.
Wow. Thank you for your service, man.
My pleasure.
That is wow. I mean, that's pretty courageous, too, especially after 9/11 happened. And I knew somebody else that had a similar story. They saw kind of 9/11 take place, and they were like, I want to serve my country. Like, it's time to go.
I'd almost want to take more credit for the patriotism, but I don't know that it was, right? I mean, I needed some. I didn't have a lot of the same opportunities, right? And so, there was an opportunity to something new, and an adventure. But at the same time, part of it was I'm in great shape. I'm intelligent. Why send anybody else? Why not step in? I've got the skills that are needed for this. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. For sure.
So I did. And despite every odd, there's a number of gateways you've got to pass through and filters before you kind of get into, the 75th Ranger Regiment. But
that's pretty legit. For people that don't know, explain what that unit is and what it's all about, the Army Rangers.
Yeah, so it's the premier direct action force in the Army and the key raid force for special operations across all of JSOC for the most part. You've got each of the different groups that have their specialties, right? And you got SEALs with, amphibious operations and a lot of the stuff they do with maritime, and you got your, PJs and combat controllers in the Air Force. But when you really need to knock something down, you call in Rangers. We're the hammer. You know, and so they put us into a lot of stuff, and I think the global war on terror was really where Rangers went from more of a light action, kind of light infantry type of unit into really a full-blown special operations serious player. And it was amazing to be a part of that. It was absolutely incredible. But it shaped me. And I think back to one of the missions I was on. It was nighttime, and we were in this valley and marching up to this compound where the supposed, person we were going to get was, and we started taking fire. But we were used to taking fire, and you can usually tell by the kind of fire you take what kind of enemy you got there, right? If we knew it was very well disciplined, coordinated stuff, we probably had some foreign fighters, right? And if it was kind of all over the place, they were probably some locals, right? But this was different than that. It was just kind of nervous firing, right? And I always think back to my commander, who is now an investor in my company. I mean,
Wow.
bless him, right? But he could have really done some terrible things that night in hindsight, and would have been completely justified in doing it. And it was for him having that spidey sense. He goes, no, something's different tonight. Stop. So we called up the interpreter, and he yells out, and they're going back and forth, and we come to find out it's just a 14-year-old kid. And we're like, why are you shooting at us? And he's like, every male in this village has been killed. I'm the oldest male in the valley, and I'm the only one here to protect all the women and children. And so if I hear noise, I fire. He's like, I just want to go to school. I just want to go to school.
Jeez.
And here I am, trying to avoid college like the plague in this kid's backyard, going, what am I doing here?
Jesus.
I have every opportunity to go to school, and I'm avoiding that to go fight a war against a kid?
Right. Damn, man.
Not my day.
That's freaking crazy, dude. You try to understand what it might be like in those situations, but I think it's kind of tough to understand unless you've really been there, I feel like you hear these stories, and it's just like, it really hits you, but it's also like, man, you can't feel that until you're in that moment and actually live in, and you're in your boots, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you something, because I've always been curious. Like, what is it like when you're taking fire from an enemy and you're in combat? What's going through your mind? What are you feeling? Like, is the first time different than maybe the seventh time? Like, I imagine your adrenaline's going. Are you thinking about death? Or like, what's kind of going through your mind?
It's crazy. It's what you think is going through your mind in a lot of ways, right? Like, especially the first time, it definitely, you get a wave of whatever chemicals and emotions you hit.
For sure.
But it relies to your training. Whatever your training is, your bare level of training, you will revert to that, especially the first time, right? And so, thankfully, being in a unit where I saw nothing but the best all the time. Never saw a guy freeze ever. They were on their game.
That's why they train you so hard. So when it does happen, you're not like, oh shit. You're like, this is what I live every day.
Man, I read a book on killing, phenomenal book, and it talks about a lot of the psychology of that, and going through the years, right, from the wars, the Civil War, and World War II, and all the different stats they were keeping through Vietnam, and how often people would fire over the enemy's head, or how often people genuinely just do not want to hurt another person.
Really?
Yeah, even in those circumstances and situations. And so that in itself is, I think, something that just being in those units you kind of take for granted, because everybody knows what to do when the time comes, and it's not a question, and you are a well-oiled machine, and there is no question of who's where, who's doing what. And it's honestly one of the biggest things I miss is there's actually an art, and it's almost a masterpiece what these guys have done when it comes to team dynamics on the fly, under fire. It's incredible.
I can feel the emotion too in you talking about this, as I imagine there is just a lot, like the brotherhood of it.
It is.
Probably had some people, that were lost or injured at minimum, and it's just an experience, right?
It is. It forged me into who I am. Burned off a lot of the dead wood and left what was harder. You know?
Do you find after those experiences, is it when you come back to kind of civilian life, like, sleeping at night and like just throughout the day, are you kind of like thinking about it sometimes, or does it eventually kind of like, there's obviously what's it called?
PTSD.
Yep.
It's like the same thing, right? It's definitely more amplified when you get out and when you get home. And it was something that shook me a little bit was I didn't start having any of those issues when I got back from deployment. It was when I got out and hit the civilian world.
Interesting.
Right? Like when you're in, right?
You're still kind of locked into that.
You're locked in. Yeah. Everybody around you is very much in the same world you are, right? And so, whatever you think, it's very much the norm, right? And then all of a sudden you're kind of cold plunged into the real world.
They think they have problems that we don't have problems like that.
Well, thankfully, you know, I'm part of a group called Three Rangers Foundation, and you know, a couple others, ACP, that do a lot of help to transition soldiers, because I think it's one of the biggest areas. When I got out, I signed 3 papers, and that was that. Jeez. Right? Have fun. Right? And it was like, what? Where do you go?
Right.
And then a few weeks later, I am in a college class with 18-year-old kids, and I'm like, no, I don't want to hang out with you guys at your party this weekend. Like,
it's probably like totally different people, just different worlds.
I just
never
couldn't
understand what you've just been through, right?
Like, I couldn't relate. Like, you want to go hang out and do parties on the weekend. Like, I just went through all of that, and I'm like, I am in this school, and I mean, I flew through my undergrad because I overloaded classes all day, took night classes, took the winter semester and summer classes. I mean, I breezed through college because, I mean, I was so grateful for the experience.
So are you guys, going back to your company, when you first started it, were you self-funded? Did you get investors in? Because I imagine it's probably pretty costly, like ramp up.
Brutal.
Yeah.
I kind of went through backing up, right? I got out of the military and started going to school, and I didn't really know what to do, right? So I looked at all the Fortune 500 CEOs and what college degrees do they have?
Yeah.
And about half of them had economics and an MBA. And so I said, okay, that's what I'll do, right? So I went to school and Governor State University. I'm sorry, not Governor. Northeastern Illinois University. We just did a project with Governor State.
That's all right.
So Northeastern Illinois University, and went through my economics. Just under 2 years, year and a half, something like that. I mean, I really took the classes on. And my goal was to get my undergrad, and then have enough on my GI Bill to get my MBA, and so that's what I did. And so that education kind of took the Ranger in me and added a lot of theory and, you know, the discipline of the mind, so to speak, and kind of put some sense to what I was, you know, witnessing over there. And, you know, I realized, again, like these key pieces I looked at through my economics degree, where are these transition points in history where like society fundamentally changes, and it's communication, it's logistics, right, and it's energy. Right? I mean, those are the big 3. And, you know, it'll change the architecture, it'll change the way cities are laid out. Everything changes around those 3. And so how do I do that? And I didn't know yet. I hadn't figured it out, but I had started in a couple of small businesses throughout my 20s, and thankfully, knock on wood, they were all successful. Sold most of them off and exited. You know, took them all to over $1 million a year. Exited.
That's incredible. What kind of businesses were they?
Had tattoo shops, a couple of tattoo shops.
Cool.
I had a couple of restaurants that I had invested in a partner with. We did like a clothing screen printing company. You know, all of those businesses, some of them had branch offs and things, and, you know, different aspects of it. But yeah,
did your military experience help you kind of like get through the tough times of entrepreneurship? Because like for the average person, you know, for anybody, there's tough times when you're an entrepreneur. Like you go through lows, very lows. You go through highs. You try to stay pretty even keel throughout the game, but it's tough sometimes. It's not for the for the faint of heart, right?
No.
But I imagine your background in the military probably prepped you for some of that.
I would say it was the most transferable skill.
Yeah.
Right? Because
fucking discipline and just grit and just
grit.
like, yes. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I always say, you know, I didn't make it through Ranger training because I'm the fastest, the smartest, the best, the strongest. Like I made it through because you cannot knock me down long.
I think that's the number one thing.
You'll knock me down,
with SEAL training, whatever it is. Like it's like mentally, are you going to keep on going? Because your body's going to want to give up.
It is. Right? You inevitably will give up. Yeah. It was funny. We were at this place, Coal Range, right? It's one of the places you go through with the selection process, and we were couple nights in, it was like 2 a.m. It was raining sideways. It was brutal. And you have to hit the wood line, right? And I can't remember how far this thing is, but it was far, a couple, I would say maybe 150, 200 yards, something like that. I mean, you're running. And you go hit the wood line and back, right? And we did that, I don't know, maybe a dozen times at this point. Like, we were smoked. And all of a sudden, a truck pulls up, and RI gets out, lights a fire, right? Lays out some ponchos and some blankets, and then he pulls out a big old box of McDonald's, and
Dang.
he has a fan, and he's just blowing the air over, right? He's like, I need 10 people to quit tonight. Nobody's stopping until we have 10 people quit tonight, right? And people will quit. You give them a way out, they will quit. That blanket looks very cozy, and that McDonald's smells very, very good. And
what is going through your mind when you're going through a very tough military exercise like that? Your body's like, I don't want to do this. They're giving you an easy out, but you're staying in the game. What are you thinking about right then?
Every other minute but that minute.
Just keep going for another minute.
Well, no, I mean, if I quit now, every minute after this for the rest of my life,
I got you.
I quit. I will always be that guy. I was gonna be a Ranger. I could have been. A lot of could have beens. Right.
So you played out the story of, if I quit now, in this moment.
Everybody was right. Mm-hmm. Everybody that told me you don't have it in you was right. Nope. Not today.
Well, what do you think, why did some people quit? Why did some people maybe just not have that? Or do you think why did others just take that easy out and go?
I don't walk in other people's shoes. I don't know, right? It could be, I've got a sick wife at home. I've got a sick kid. I don't know. But a lot of guys just don't have that dog in them.
Yeah.
They just don't have it.
You got to dig deep, right?
You got to dig real deep.
Yeah. I'm sure there's points where your body was just like, I can't
all the time.
Do this anymore.
All the time.
Your mind just said, fuck, keep going. You just gotta keep going.
Your body quits on you all the time. You've lifted to failure, right? You ran a little too far, right? And it happens. And it happens in a much higher degree in regiment and Ranger school. But the idea is, and I've said it a million times, go to deployment any day. That was so easy compared to the training.
Really?
And that's intentionally so.
Wow.
Right? Like, I'm going to make training as hard as possible so you can make the day you need it much easier. Those days get real tough if you haven't trained.
Right. Wow.
Real tough.
So you start the company, you got some funding now, right? You secured some funding.
I think, let's go back to that. So I had started these, but the goal was, I want to, you read the horror stories, right? So bootstrap, self-fund as long as you can, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I had these small businesses that I had exited, and fortunately I was, smart with my money in my early years to, kind of see the writing on the wall. But I invested in as many business models as I could because I wanted to understand business from so many different angles. And, thankfully that gave me a number of successes, some phenomenal successes, some, lucky to walk out with the shirt I walked in on despite success, believe it or not. There's a lot of those stories that are out there, and I've got one or two myself now, and you're happy to part ways in some of them. But I built up enough to where in 2013, right, 12 years ago, I was able to start filing these patents, and patents are very expensive. But
I bet, man.
So there's
I did a trademark, and it was like annoying.
It's
patents, like, I'd be like,
I think one patent just in the U.S. just to get it $25,000, right?
No way.
Oh
wow.
Yeah, they start going to other countries. I think
it's kind of sad that they make you. Is it the government charging you that fee?
No, the government fees are actually pretty moderate. I mean, it's legal fees. I mean, and you need it. You can't. It's one thing. If you're going to get in that game, don't cheap out on the lawyer. Right. So we start filing these patents, right? And, number of years. And at the time, I still have, a couple of these companies going. So they're funding this, and I'm putting every dollar I have into it, knowing there's a big picture here. And so we get to, I would say about 2017, right? I start getting some calls from my lawyer, and he's going like, hey, you're about to get granted in China. You're about to get granted in Canada, right? And over the course of, the first half of 2017, we got a couple of those calls, and I was like, so I've got it, right? You get that first one in, and you're like, all right, maybe that examiner screwed up, right?
Yeah.
And you get another one, okay, what's going on? You get 3 of those calls, you're like, oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Like, I nailed it, And so I think at the time I was maybe $250,000 in, right? And I mean, it was all the money I'd saved.
That's a hell of a bootstrap, though, man. That's a lot to put in yourself.
20 something, 29 at the time.
Right.
But I had put that money in and was fortunate that we were able to get that far. And so 2017 we formed Valqari to begin operationalizing it, and then in 2018 we took on our first angel money. Not a ton, but our first $100,000 check. And man, I thought that thing was a $1 billion check. You're like, oh my God, somebody believed in this.
Right.
So that's when things kicked off.
So what's next for you guys now? Like, what's kind of the next big milestone, or what you're excited about, or?
So the executive order that just passed in June that opens the skies up in February. Transportation Secretary Duffy, I believe it was yesterday, published the BVLOS rules for all of the requirements for beyond visual line of sight, and they go live in February.
What does that mean for the average person that doesn't know this stuff?
Yeah, so beyond visual line of sight is the kind of the acronym, the nomenclature for, up until now, the last 10 years, right? It was almost right after I filed the patents. The FAA makes an announcement that here's the new rules. You have to be within line of sight of your drone. You have to see it at all times. You can't do package delivery, right? All these different components, and I think it was 2018 and then 2020, and over the years they started adding additional supplements to it that kind of lightened things up, or at least made them more market friendly as they were incorporating things like remote identification. So you'd imagine any plane is telling where it is at all times, right? You have to transpond your location, and so that wasn't a requirement for drones until 2021, 2022, right? And so they announced had that, right? And so they have been incrementally putting the pieces together. But now that we have beyond visual line of sight, you no longer have to be in the same vicinity as your drone, right? And all the hobbyists and all that were flying line of sight still are flying line of sight and doing the fun things they were doing. All the people taking photographs of rooftops for insurance and real estate, they can still do that. But now you can have drones flying your McDonald's. Now you can have, if you get into an accident, a drone can show up within 30 seconds and drop a bleeder kit down to make sure first responders and Good Samaritans have everything they need, right? All of these new pieces where you imagine that Jetsons future. I was just gonna
say the Jetsons.
That's it. That's what it opens. It's I no longer have to be in this, right? The chain can now automate to some extent, and the next big step is going to be what we call one to many, which is probably a couple years away. But that's where you'll have one pilot flying many drones. You can get waivers for it now, but I believe 2027, maybe 28, we're going to start hearing about that being the next big push before the drones are actually just fully automated.
Wow. It's exciting, man. A lot of cool stuff. Yeah. You guys are right in the thick of it, so that's cool.
Yep.
You have kids, yeah?
I do not.
You do not have kids?
No kids.
Okay.
No kids. Haven't had time for that yet.
Is that in the future cards or no?
I don't think so.
No,
probably not near my own.
In a lot of ways, your business is your baby.
Yeah, it is.
Right? You're kind of like, you just have a lot to cover there.
It is. Yeah. It is.
What kind of last thing here for founders, what would your advice be if you could go back in time? And I know you've owned a lot of different businesses. So whether it's the first business you started or whether it's your current company, what would advice be that you would want to hear as a founder looking back that now that you didn't know before?
Build a network, build a very trusted network, and have a good reputation and integrity in that network. I've fortunately been insanely protective of my integrity and reputation because I won't I don't tolerate it even being questioned oftentimes, because I live and die by that,
Why is that so important to you, and what does that mean?
I mean, as a founder, if it gets stripped away, if everything gets stripped away from you and you got to go rebuild it tomorrow, can people trust you to do it? Or are you Billy McFarlane?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you gotta keep that. Like, it's the one thing the VCs can't strip from you if you ever go through it. You know what I mean? Like,
your word is bond. Like, when
always.
you say you're going to do something, you do it. Yeah.
And if you screw people over, you can do it one time.
Right.
And then you're that guy.
Yeah.
And your word is a nothing, right?
Yeah.
And so, like we talked, I got out of the Army, and it was challenging for me in college to relate and socialize with people, and I wasn't kind of self-aware enough to overcome it at the time. And so that probably costed me a lot of opportunities, short and long term. You hear a lot of people go to college for the people they meet and the network they get, and it's probably the most important thing about school, I would say, as much, if not more so, than the education. I mean, you always hear it's who you know.
I agree.
Right? And you can learn any skill, right? And so not putting enough emphasis on that, and not really taking the time to, it seems stupid. At the time, I thought I was being disciplined and avoiding all the parties and, doing that and loading up on my classes. But had I taken time to go to some of those parties and make some of those relationships more, I think I would have served myself a little better in the long run. So that would definitely be the advice I'd give people is, don't minimize that, right? I mean, it's important.
Relationships are, in a lot of ways, relationships are everything.
Everything.
Anything you want in life is one relationship away,
and they've
from
got to
you
know,
getting that.
They're going to know, are you worthwhile or not to put the time and trust into.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to protect that.
Yeah, so true, man. Brian, I've really enjoyed this conversation, man.
It's been great.
I appreciate you being here. Where can I can continue this? We could talk about the UAP stuff forever. We could talk about drones, but unfortunately, there's a time limit here. So where can people find you, connect with you, learn more about what you guys are doing?
I'm on LinkedIn, Ryan Walsh. Connect with us on LinkedIn as well at Valqari, or you can check us out online, valqari.com.
Cool. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.